Like there's no time machine, there's no future machine. We're all over-analyzing everything. And you start this business and you were 100% right. And it's huge and you're doing so great. Yeah. But because you did that, you had to fly to America for a big meeting and your plane crashed and you died. Or you think you're gonna go to college because it's a good experience and you'll meet people. You can meet people in a business. You're not gonna know, which means currently I missed out on $600 million. You could think that's a mistake, or if I would have invested in Uber, maybe I'd be somewhere else right now and picking up a disease that would kill me a year later, maybe. I think people overthink decisions. You'll never know what the alternative would have been. So just pick one and do it. Yeah, I just don't think your degree is as safe as you think. And by the way, like it's an important conversation. Parents grew up in an era where a degree was safe, but companies, guys, watch the world. The biggest companies in the world every day are stopping requiring college degrees. It's just not as valuable. So, but it might be, but for you, forget about a general concept. For you, maybe that degree would have been good.
How to make tough decisions. Point number one on making tough decisions is game theory. So Bobby says, let's go rob a bank. You guys go rob a bank. So while you're about to rob this bank and go away with $2 million, you get caught, you get arrested. Cops take you. Your last chance with Bobby, you talk to him and say, listen, I'm not gonna snitch, you're not gonna snitch, I'm not gonna snitch. Now you're not best friends, but these are just somebody you're gonna go rob money with. And you say, okay, I'm not gonna snitch. So all these guys show up, good cop, bad cop, they do all the stuff that they do. Then there's the prisoner's dilemma. They give you a deal, and here's what they say. They say, John, I want to tell you something. Bobby's about to snitch on you. And let me explain to you why you may want to consider snitching on him before he snitches on you. And you say, I'm not going to snitch. In your mind, you're saying this because there's no way Bobby's snitching on you. Here's how it works. If you don't snitch and Bobby doesn't snitch, you get 2 years, he gets 2 years. But if you snitch and he snitches, both of you get 5 years. So what would you like to do? And you're sitting there. You're like, I don't know, Bobby. We're not friends. We're not family. If he gets the same exact offer, what's Bobby gonna do? So you have to ask yourself, he's most likely gonna snitch on me. So what are the odds? How do you make that decision? And whatever decision you make, then you have to live with the consequences. And are you okay with that? Because if you don't snitch, you're gonna take the risk for 2 or 10. If you do snitch, 0 or 5, what are you gonna be doing? That's the prisoner's dilemma, right? So what does that have to do with making tough choices? Okay, in life, you fight somebody. You punch him in the face. That's action. I punch you in the face. I am going to sit there and say, if I punch you in the face, the consequences are you're going to punch me back. And so if you punch me back, my reaction is what? Either to fight or run away. And if I run away, how long do I have to run away? Forever. If I fight, maybe I beat you and you're like, I'm tougher than you, so we don't no longer fight anymore. But it's constantly going. So in life, whatever decision you're getting ready to make, you want to marry, you want to go out there and raise money, you want to go invest, you want to go be a businessman, you want to quit your job, you want to be this. You have to go to that position of asking yourself, if I take action, what are the consequences? And the consequences I get, how do I respond and react to these consequences? And then for the rest of your career, it's the same exact thing. Constantly have to repeat this entire thing over and over and over again. So the whole worst case scenario you got to do is, whatever decision you're getting ready to make that's a tough decision, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? Can you live with that? If the answer is yes, make the decision, move on, because that's what you're living with. That's the worst thing that's gonna happen, because anything above that is gravy. Worst case you accept, you move on. So that mentally you have to get yourself ready, so if it ever happens to you, you're not surprised. Move on, meaning you're gonna have a lot of different opportunities in your life. And when I say opportunities, I'm not just talking about money and making millions. I'm talking about different relationships, people that enter in your life. If an opportunity comes your way and it's very attractive, but it doesn't match your values and principles that you live by, don't even think twice about it. Move on. That headache and you sleeping on a hard pillow at night is not worthy of you making that decision, because then your mind is being consumed of something you did that doesn't match your values and principles. The moment you're unaligned, you're not fulfilled, and you won't enjoy yourself while you're doing that. So it's simple. Decision doesn't match your values and principles, don't even think about it, move on. But the number one factor I look for when I'm asking counsel from somebody is being absolutely reasonable, to be able to process a decision in a reasonable fashion without adding emotions to it. If you can find somebody like that to take counsel from, you're gonna make so many better choices, especially the tough ones, because they may give you an angle you're not looking at. You're gonna say, oh, you know what? never thought about it that way before. Let me try this before I make this final decision to cut this or leave this or do that. What is your alternative? And let me explain to what I mean by what's your alternative. So you're getting close to making a tough decision, right? And you kind of like, you're a little bit hesitant about it. You're not 100% there yet. You always look at alternatives. When you look at a business you're about to do and you're going to work with somebody, I just don't know if I'm fully feeling it. Is there an alternative? And isn't it enough? Because sometimes you'll have alternatives and the alternative is going to make you even be more confident about the decision that you're getting ready to make. But simple, tougher the decision, see if you have alternatives, and then try to pick the best decision you have amongst the alternatives. Decision fatigue. Let me explain decision fatigue. So anytime I'm making a big decision, I never make the big decision when I'm fatigued for the day. For example, they would say a lot of times, say, if you can go to somebody and get them to buy late at night because they're tired and they just kind of want to get rid of you and say, yes, it's easier to sell somebody because they're so tired, right? Car salesmen, they had this idea 20 years ago, the longer we keep the customer there for 3 hours, they're gonna buy because they fatigue. So they finally say, oh, let's just do it, forget about it. Fatigue is a method of selling, but you don't wanna use fatigue in a method of you making decisions. The moment you get to it and you're like, I think I'm getting fatigued, man. I don't think I'm gonna make the right decision. Just say, you know what? Let me sleep on it. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Simple. Never make a massive decision when you're fatiguing. Always make a massive decision when you're all there, you're rested, you're strong, your mind is in a good place. You're like, you know what? Here's what I think we ought to do. I'm not ready to make this decision right now. We're passing on this. Great. So again, decision fatigue. While you're making a big decision, are you fatigued? If you are, sleep for a night and then think about it tomorrow. Once you make the decision, don't go back on it. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. Too often people make decisions and they're like, I shouldn't have made the decision. What if I would have done this? Oh my gosh. The more you go there, you actually get demotivated and you become bitter and you're not happy and you don't perform well and your business takes a hit. So let me explain. We had a meeting the other day with our executives and I said, listen guys, too often we hire way too fast and we fire way too slow. What do you mean by that? I said, too often we hire way too fast and we fire way too slow, which we need to hire slow with more options and fire fast if we know it's not going to work. Why are we taking our time with this? Why are we moving so quickly on the beginning decision? What does that mean to you? So a big decision that you have, the process is going to be slower, but the movement is going to be faster. Okay, once you make the decision, stick to it. So it doesn't matter if it's going to win. I have made so many decisions in my career: buying, investing, selling, hiring, firing, cutting a relationship, starting a relationship. So many have worked, so many have not worked, but to sit there and relive it and go through it and say, oh my goodness, I made a big mistake. Every time I've gone that road, it's never served me well. So for you, once you make a decision, don't go back on it again.
You've got to start to build a habit of being decisive. Successful people, happy people, leaders are decisive people. The vast majority of problems that arise in your life should be solved immediately, like 85% of them. Resolved immediately. Make a decision, massive certainty, take action, it's gone. There are 3 steps that I always take. First thing we need to know is, let's start out with some basic premises. I'm going to give you some very tactical steps here as we move forward, but problems need energy to live. I want you to own that. Remember this, problems need energy to live. And so the concept should be that we solve problems, but we don't have to pour and deplete ourselves of energy. Because the more energy you give something, the more it expands. We want to be in the max out universe, we want to pour our energy and expense our energy towards the solution, not towards the problem. So the first thing I want you to write down is 90% of your energy, focus, time, and thought should be towards the solution, not towards the problem itself. This is a mistake most people make because they expend all the energy into the problem. They obsess over the problem. And when you expand energy, it grows to survive. And the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the solution becomes more and more difficult. So the first thing is, can you consciously begin to focus on energy expansion into the solution, 90% of it into the solution and not into the problem. What we do is we repeat that problem over and over and over again, and we magnify it to the point where we don't come up with realistic solutions and we deplete ourselves as energy towards the solution. And so focus going forward, when a problem arises, a challenge arises, that you focus 90% of your energy and thoughts on the solution and not repeating the problem to yourself. And again, I want to remind you, we want problems in our lives. They're the one opportunity we have to grow. Without the existence of problems and challenges, there's no opportunities for growth in life. And so we don't wish for a life that doesn't have challenges and problems, even though it seems like we would want one. Number 10, you're somebody who wants to grow and improve and change in your life and become a maxed out version and a better version of yourself in every area. The only opportunity you have to do that is when problems and challenges arise. These are growth opportunities in our life. So when they arise, it's very important that you see them as an opportunity to grow. And again, I don't mean that in a rah-rah, foofy way. It's very true. It's important that we distinguish what it means, because remember this, in other audios I've talked about the quality of our life is comprised of the quality of emotions we live with. Our life is our emotions, right? If you have the emotions of happiness and joy and ecstasy and peace and faith and passion and intensity and winning, that's a great life. If you have a life that's filled with emotions regularly of depression, anxiety, fear, stress, worry, anger, that's a totally different quality of life. So our emotions dictate the quality of our life. And so when a stimulus like a problem comes up, we better be thinking it's an opportunity to grow, and we better be expensing our energy towards the solution, or we start to experience the wrong emotions. Why? Because in our life, emotions come from meaning. Because when problems come up in life, the meaning we take from the event dictates the emotion we experience. And so that emotion dictates the quality of our life. And so I want you going forward, when a problem arises, to feel the emotion and take the meaning away that this is an opportunity to grow, to expand. If you look back at your life in hindsight, the problems and challenges you have all made you better when you solved them. So those are the keys to begin today. The question is, how do we solve them? Is there a process? Is there a mindset? Are there some steps that when these arise, I've got a recipe and a formula? And that's what I want to share with you today. So now I want to start out with a very basic 3-step formula to begin with. Then we're going to get very granular and very specific. But there are 3 steps that I always take once I've arrived where I'm ready to take action towards solving problems. Number 1 is make a decision. Once you've made a decision, make it. Number 2 is have massive certainty about that decision you've made. Once you've made a decision about how you're going to execute on this problem, make the decision. Number 2, massive certainty. Flood yourself with certainty. You can't execute at a high level with self-doubt or a doubt about the process, a doubt about your strategy. Flood yourself with certainty that you know what you've got is going to work. And then 3rd, take insane action. This is a recipe in every area of your life. I don't care if it's in business, in family, in sports. Make a decision. Flood yourself with certainty and take massive action. This process I use with the athletes I coach. I use it with the entertainers, with the politicians, with the business people. I'm always reminding them all the time. I'm repeating them constantly. Make a decision. People wait around too long for the perfect plan. I'd rather have a flawed plan executed with certainty and massive action than the perfect plan executed with doubt and very little action. There is no perfect decision. Make one. Now we're going to talk about how to arrive at the best decision in a minute, but I want you to remember, make a decision. Massive certainty, massive insane action. This will crush most problems. We've already talked about spending 90% of our time on the solution and not the problem. I'm going to give you another set of percentages here. The vast majority of problems that arise in your life should be solved immediately, like 85% of them. Resolved immediately. Make a decision, massive certainty, take action, it's gone. That means without a lot of deliberation. You've got to start to build the habit of being decisive. Successful people, happy people, leaders are decisive people. And I believe somewhere, if there's 100 problems, challenges in life, 85 of them should be decided immediately with not a lot of deliberation, and then certainty and massive action will eliminate that challenge and that problem most of the time. It's the people who procrastinate on the problem or ignore it or think it might go away that gives that problem time to magnify, to fester, to grow, to where now it's become bigger than it needed to be. Second point, get clear on what this problem really means. Is this a problem that's really going to matter in 5 years? Really? Because what we do is, we talked earlier about meaning. What we do is most people, a problem comes up and we begin to flood ourselves when they stack it and stack it. This is a pattern most people go into, and they lose perspective on how really important this problem is. They lose perspective. They get foggy because they've increased their stress level so high that now the problem is difficult to solve because you've lost perspective on really how big of a deal it is. And so make sure you're very clear. Is this something that's going to matter in 5 years? Because if it's not one of those types of problems, for the most part, massive action, 85%. We're going to talk today about the 15% of the time where it requires a deliberation and a process to solve it. But don't be conflicted or confused into thinking most of the things that arise in your life, most of the time your challenge is you're not solving it quickly enough. You're not being deliberate. You're not being decisive. You're not getting totally certain. Certainty is so huge. Flood yourself with certainty, the reasons it'll work over and over again. And then most people don't understand. You can obliterate most problems with just massive action. I see people hem and haw and make excuses all the time when challenges arise, and it would have just been solved if you'd have decided, you'd have been totally certain, and you'd obliterate that problem with some massive action. Now, in order to get stressed about the problem, there's a few things that you have to do that you're going to be negative for you. Number one thing most people do to increase the stress level unnecessarily on a problem is you focus on the pressure that's aggravating you. In other words, you begin to focus on what the pressure means. You increase what it really means in the grand scheme of life, and you give it more energy than it needs. This is something you need to stop doing. Number two, you give this stressor like a disempowering meaning is what I call it. It begins to make you think, quite frankly, you're going to lose. What stress really is when a problem comes up is the fear of loss. And what you do is you begin to give this a disempowering meaning, and you begin to feel like you're going to lose something, which is why having a process means so much to me, because when I know I have a process to solve a problem, I'm so much less fearful of the loss or the stress that it's going to cause me. And so just know, when you begin to get these feelings, it's where your focus is going that's causing this stress level to rise in you unnecessarily, and it's probably a pattern you have. We've talked about this a lot in other audios and videos where you have a pattern. And my hallucination for many of you is that when a problem arises, you begin to focus on the problem more than the solution. You begin to magnify your stress level, make a disempowering meaning, which is this fear you're going to lose something. And oftentimes, it's not even a thing. Oftentimes, it's you're afraid you're going to lose certainty, one of the 6 needs. You're going to lose your uncertainty. You're going to lose your significance. You might lose someone's love, right? You may lose the ability to grow or the ability to contribute, but you begin to focus on what you're going to lose, and that fear magnetizes the problem and causes you stress. Stress is not a great place to live from. It's one of those disempowering meanings, and it's also a terrible place to make decisions from to solve problems. And the third way you create stress when a problem comes up is physically, in your body, what I call like your state, your physiology. You begin to get tense, don't you? You begin to hunch over. Your breathing gets shallow. You kind of get closed. That worry, that feeling we get. You know what I'm talking about. This stress level that you use your body to create. Listen to what I just said. You're using your body in such a way to magnetize and elevate your stress level. See, that physiology of hunched over, shallow breathing, right, is something that is the same as depression, as fear, as worry, as stress, as pain, as anxiety. It's the same thing you do with your body to create all those emotions. You may need to check if you do this to yourself when a problem arises. The other type of physiology is like when we're working out, when we're laughing, right? Ecstasy if you're with your significant other, right? That problem, that celebration, that's a different physiology, isn't it? It's your back straight, you're breathing deeply, you're smiling, you're using your whole body, your face muscles, right? Your face is smiling. There's a certain way you do laughter and joy and pleasure and ecstasy physically, isn't there? And so when a problem arises, check your physiology. You can't make a great decision from a bad physiology. You can't make a decision in stress. And so I'm checking these things all the time. One of the biggest things I check when a problem arises is my physiology, because I have a pattern where I go back to that depressed, worried, stress, anxiety physiology, and then I either can't make a decision, I can't execute. So check that pattern with you. When a problem arises, what do I do physically? This is something nobody talks about, but you probably get quiet and hunched over. You start repeating those thoughts and magnifying it, and you're using your body in such a way that elevates the stress and gives you a disempowering physiology to make great decisions. So get back to that workout, ecstasy, laughter, joy, passion, physiology. Just move your body, do some jumping jacks, take a quick run, take a walk, right? You've all probably had the experience where you've solved problems working out, you've solved problems in the shower, you've solved problems in a peak physical state. So change your physiology, you can change the ability to solve that problem.
Created by Edward de Bono. And it's this idea that if you are facing a decision or a difficulty or a dilemma in your life, one of the reasons why we can't always think our way out of something is because we see something from a set point of view. And what 6 thinking hats does, it gives you permission to step out of yourself and try on another lens. Meaning, imagine this table here has 6 color hats, right?
Yep.
And I want everybody to think about, who's listening or watching this right now, a decision you need to make or difficulty. And then you have these hats. So the first hat is the white hat. In no specific order. So imagine you're reaching out and you're putting on the white hat.
Okay.
Right? And the white hat, and I'll give you a mnemonic because I'm the memory guy to help you remember what each one symbolizes. The white hat, imagine a white scientist lab coat, like a white lab coat. That's data, that's information, that's facts, right? So now you can only look at this situation or this decision tree through the eyes of logic.
Price. I'm thinking about, is it a good time to buy? What's the graph saying? I'm thinking about renting versus buying.
Commute and travel and amenities that are, would be all the factual. And then so you could take off the white hat and now look for the red hat. So you grab the red hat, you put it on, and the red hat symbolizes heart, is emotions. So this is where you're going more with your gut, your feeling. You're putting logic aside and just like, what feels right for you?
Her family lives in Portugal, so that's the first thing that came to mind when you said about feelings, so being close to family.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is good. I hope everyone's doing this also. So you could take off the red hat and you could put on, let's say, the black hat. And the black hat, think of a judge's robe. And the judge's robe, this is where you get a little bit, you could be judgmental. You could look at the risk or the devil's advocate. You could look at the other side, in terms of what could go wrong.
I might hate living there. The places we're considering we've never lived in before. So what if we buy a place and then we immediately don't like it? Maybe we should stay where we are and not buy anywhere. Maybe the housing market will collapse and it'll be such a bad investment that we'll regret it.
So you're shining a spotlight. So the idea here is that the information is out there, but where are we choosing to put a spotlight and acknowledge and be aware of? So you could take off the black hat, and we're doing this abbreviated, right? And then look for the yellow hat. You put on the yellow hat, and the yellow is like the sun, and that's like optimism. And this is like all the things opposite of the black hat. What could go wrong? What could go right? Like what the upside.
And
the
even
upside nice. And those are 4 hats. And the last 2, take off the yellow hat and find the green hat. And so you put on the green hat, and the green is possibility. It's like new growth. If you look at the plants that are green, imagine new foliage, new growth. And these are like maybe thinking outside the box. Like maybe it's not I go to this job or this job. Maybe it's I go back to school, or maybe it's something I'm not entertaining. So that's possibility. So if it was like between this and this, it could be like choice 3 or choice 4.
A third option. So maybe we'll try America, or we'll try another place to live in the world, or maybe we'll just Airbnb in all these places and we can live in all of them.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be green. And then finally, the last hat. So it can be done in any order, but the blue hat is always you end with. So put on the blue hat. And the blue, imagine the sky overlooking everything. It's kind of like the manager hat. It listens to all the conversations with all the other color hats, and then it helps you make a decision. Because it informs, here's the thing, you can only make decisions based on what's in your conscious awareness. And so many people live with a certain hat on, like 24/7. They are just that logical facts, prove it to me, and they see through a certain lens. But if they're not, looking at the emotional context or other possibilities or the downside of, Branson's very good at that, right? He's very good at looking at, everyone looks at him as very, very risky, do all these crazy things, but he's, you have conversations with him. He looks at, from the black hat, look in terms of risk management, right? And mitigating the downside. And so but if you just looked at everything through the yellow hat, investing, optimistic, you think everything's going to Bitcoin, everything's going to be good, and you go all in that, and you're ignoring the other points of view. And so this allows you to have more information. So hopefully with that more information, you can make a wiser choice with something. And that's kind of
And you literally recommend people in chapter 15 of this book to buy multicolored hats.
If you wanted to be able to do that, we could do this. We do this with our